Hello and welcome to the May 12th, Friday, May 12th edition of the contributor comms team meeting. I was just thinking before this meeting that every time I still feel like I should say upstream marketing, but no, we are contributor comms solidly now. So welcome to the meeting. As usual, we do operate under a code of conduct, which essentially says to be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. I've shared the notes in the chat. Do feel free to drop in there and go ahead and add some things. Excellent, excellent. See, we've got some getting added here. Make sure that I've got a couple more folks to add to the attendee list. One thing that we usually try to do at the beginning of the meeting is offer an opportunity for any new folks on the call to say hello and introduce themselves. I don't know if anyone on the call today is new, but if you are, or if you'd just like to introduce yourself, you are welcome to do so now. Well, I guess, yeah, you all are new. New to this meeting. Would you like to say hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Aubrey. I'm the community manager and lead of Fast Forward at Fastly. We are super excited to be supporting Kubernetes through our Fast Forward program, and really excited to talk about comms regarding Kubernetes starting to switch over to Fastly.
Exciting. Curious to hear more about that. I don't know that much about that. Anyone else? All right, I think we are good to drop into it then. First, we usually go over updates and big wins, and it looks like we do have one. Sujay.
I think Federico added this.
Yeah, I added it, but it's in his name because obviously he was the one pushing this forward. So yeah, congrats for that. I think that it was, it's always good when we have outcomes of the work that we start, and we've been having more and more of this spotlight article. So I think it's important to mention the work that Sujay did in this, and well, it's out there and it's a good example for others.
Yay! Was this just published last week?
I wasn't here last week, so I just took a look at the notes, and I noticed that it wasn't there. So, but I think it was published last week, at the beginning of last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it published on 9th, I guess.
Did we not go over that? We might have gone over it in the table or something, but it should be called out as an update and big win. So thank you. Wonderful work. Thank you, Sujay and Federico. Go blogging team. Look at y'all getting so much done. There was some other question I wanted to ask about that. How long did that take you, Sujay? That was quick. I feel like that was just a couple months.
Yeah, maybe
Tops?
2 or 3 months, but in the middle I was stuck for the
good.
KubeCon.
Yeah. That's saying something. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'm really excited to see us making progress on this. So from that, we will dive into new items. I'm going to move the events lead discussion to the end. Also, Avinash isn't here. So let's go ahead with Arnaud and Hannah.
Yeah. Hi. So basically, I'm going to restart this. So hi, I'm Arnaud. I'm the SIG chair for Kubernetes C for the infrastructure group. So basically, my group operates the underlying infrastructure for the project. So, and one of the things we're responsible for is the.case.io, which is the home for all the official binary published by the project. Currently, this workload is owned by Google Infrastructure. In order to migrate and have full ownership for the community, we reach out to Fastly to help us do the migration to a community infrastructure. So Fastly agreed to do a huge donation of 10 petabytes per month. Thank you to them for that. And we need to make the migration happen. In order to do that, we want to give a heads up to the community or user, because we have we are close to 7 petabytes per month, which is huge in terms of egress costs. So we need to give a heads up to the community and user about that. So I put a draft here to basically get the word out. We're doing that migration. So I need help with review, comments, stuff. Also ask Anna to join us here so we can talk about what we can put in that incoming blog post or things we can do. I'm not an expert at communication, so this is my call for help.
We got you. First off, I want to ask though, what is dl.k8s.io?
That's an interesting question.
I don't know that I've ever used that.
I don't think either. Basically, it's an endpoint mostly used to either download a kubectl binary or
That's the DL.
mainly used by CI to download any official binary we build and publish. So every time every time we have an official release, we publish those binary there. And basically, to be more explicit in terms of infrastructure, it's a GCS bucket owned by Google, and we publicly serve, and that's go to redirect owned by us. So the idea is to move everything under the community infrastructure.
Gotcha. So it's quite similar in many aspects to the registry change.
Yeah. I would say the only difference is we don't do a redirect from Google to, we don't do a redirect of traffic from Google to us. We basically do a cutover. That's what we're doing. So the idea is to put Fastly in front of a GCS bucket, either owned by Google or owned by us. And yeah, we serve now those binary through the Fastly network.
Okay, interesting. So you said it's not really a redirect, but it's kind of more changing the back end, right?
It's a redirect we're doing and also changing the backend at the same time.
Okay.
So dl.k8s.io redirect to a GCS bucket right now.
Yeah.
Now we want to do that, basically say, okay, redirect to Fastly, and we shield the bucket with Fastly, and that's become, I would say, transparent to the end users. Now we can do whatever we want in the backend. So use S3, use Cloudflare R2, use the new Fastly object store service. We can do whatever we want.
So it's going to be changing such that it uses other backend.
We can now use more than one backend, but that's going to be completely transparent to the end user. So we can flip without giving notice now.
It's a bit like the change in registry, right? Well, not from a technical perspective, but the overarching goal is the idea of decoupling things that are quite fixed in Google resources and perhaps making it less coupled going forward. Yeah.
So we now, over time, we try to decouple ourselves from the Google infrastructure.
Overall, just
overall.
In general.
So it's a long process. So we still have a lot of things to migrate. So we're going as fast as possible.
All right. So we're working with Fastly to diversify the backend of dl.k8s.io. This change shouldn't be noticeable for end users, but will be important for the project. Is that a good high-level overview?
Yeah.
Something that I could put in a tweet?
Yeah, the only change is like you have people blocking Fastly IPs for whatever reason.
Oh, okay. That is a good point.
Yeah. So that's I would say the main. That's why we need to give the notice, because we have entities like governments, companies having strict network boundaries. So we need to basically give an update like, oh yeah, your CI will break because we now use Fastly. Why are you blocking Fastly? Yeah.
If anyone was going to be hitting that directly,
yeah,
it's going to be those types of organizations too.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. Okay. Things like governments, organizations with very strict network stuff. Strict network rules. I'm looking to do this. They're also the most likely to use it because they would be more likely to be rolling their own Kubernetes on-prem or something like that. I'm curious, you don't have to go into this level of detail right now if you don't want to, but you mentioned that wasn't kubectl, was it? Or was it the kubelet that calls into dl.k8s.io to grab binaries?
So
at what stage of creating or using a cluster does this happen?
It depends on how you install the cluster. So if you rely only on binaries, you basically say in your Bootstrap system, downloads all the binaries needed to install the cluster. I would say if you pick, for example, Kesley iTower repo, Kubernetes the right way, you're going to use that endpoint to basically download all the binaries. Now you have people directly using container images. So it's highly dependent on how you bootstrap your environment.
And then how does it relate to registry.k8s.io? How different are the binaries, and when would you use one over the other?
They are different artifacts, so they are completely independent.
Okay. That's what it sounded like. So the artifacts hosted in dl.k8s.io are completely separate from the ones in registry.k8s.io?
It's also a complete separate workload endpoint used by mostly KOps Bootstrap environment.
Okay. Totally separate from registry. Generally used bootstrapping.
Yeah, mostly bootstrapping, mostly to install kubectl in the machine. So I think you have distribution using downloading from dl.k8s.io to install kubectl on your system. Or you have people having script, don't installing directly.
Sounds like I should go run through Kubernetes the hard way to try this out.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to do that, I recommend it. It is a great way to learn things. My teammates just recently did that. All right. I think I've got a general sense of what it is and what it does. The next questions I'm going to ask are about the kinds of media we need to make. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. But if you do have any questions about how this works, anyone else, you're welcome to ask, of course.
Well,
so
at least blog post plus tweet, and now sky's
pretty
the
much
limit
what we do.
Yeah, I mean,
also, what's the timeline that you're looking on this? Looking at on this?
I would like to give a 30-day notice. So yeah, the clock start once the blog post is out. So when is now up to how we try to polish the draft to get that ready for publication.
So you want to set your timeline once the blog post is out.
Yeah,
of like once the
it's
blog
like
post is
30,
out, it's
yeah,
gonna be 30 days from then. Very
30
cool.
days.
I like that approach. It gives us a bit more room to make it what we want it to be, rather than like, okay, it needs to be out right this second. Gotcha. Which often happens.
Yeah, I think that's my honest opinion. Now we can, maybe people will have a different perspective on this and say, oh yeah, we should give 90 days of notice. I don't know. So I think I want to honor the Fastly contract as soon as possible, because each year we need to retalk, review the bandwidth allow. So I would like to say, oh, 2023 we use this because we only start to use Fastly in June or July. So next year, we are sure we can still get the 10 petabytes per month.
Also, Pixel says hello.
Hi.
So it sounds like we need to start this process of figuring out what we want to put in the blog post, drafting it, all of that. And as we're figuring out the information that's going to go into the blog post and how likely it is to affect users and how severely, you'll be able to make some decisions on exactly how much notice you think is needed for the change.
Okay.
Sound right?
Okay.
Cool. So Frederico, sounds like you've got some work to do. Do you have any questions, Frederico?
Yeah, well, a couple. So,
by the way, Frederico is our blogging lead.
I would say that if we can agree with a specific goal, which is to create something that communicates a specific change that the community needs to hear about, we can work with that from that, and well, we just need someone to start with. I can obviously, or any of the people that are shadowing, do any kind of specific assistance on the processes, etc. But the content itself, etc., that's the thing that I think we need to start.
Yeah,
So
if you have time, there's a draft we put in the meeting notes. If you can review that.
Yeah.
And for any question you have, me or Anna, happy to answer.
What I can do is exactly what I have no. I haven't read it yet. I have not saw that link. So what I will do is that in the next couple of days, I will go through them, and we can continue any discussion through until next meeting through Slack. I'll send you some feedbacks, messages, doubts, and we can continue to work on this. I seem to have you mentioned something that around any kind of specific deadline. So do you have any targets date for this? Specifically, is there any cutoff date that we need to be aware of that this needs to be published before?
End of June is basically my target date.
Okay, so it's not like for 3 days, so it's okay.
No,
we
like,
can target
I want
at
to
the
give
end of May.
Yeah. So I want to give a 30-day notice. Now it's like really depend on when we basically say, oh, the blog post is ready. So if we get the blog post ready by, I will say May 2021, we can say, okay, we're gonna have that cut over June 21.
Yeah.
So June is your target date for the blog post or for the change?
The change can be done very easily. So at the moment we basically get the blog post out, we are ready.
Okay. And a bit of insight into the blogging process, which Frederico made a wonderful guide for. We usually start the draft of the blog post either in Google Docs or in HackMD, something that's really easy to collaborate on. And then once it's in a good state and we think it's pretty much ready, then we go ahead and do the PR. We want to make as few changes on the pull request as possible. So that's kind of how that'll work. One other change I had while we were discussing this, or question, I don't know what I said, is it sounds like this is end user impacting. So it sounds like end users will probably be the primary audience. Are there any internal contributors or stakeholders that you particularly want to target with this?
No, it's like for us, it's the entire community. So we don't have a specific target for this.
Okay.
Which means that the end target of this blog wise, it's the main site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not the contributor site.
Yeah, it's the main site.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
Well,
I'll follow the same process that we did with the registry change. It's more or
Yeah.
less of the same kind of so yeah, so we're set. I'll take a look first, me and the rest of the comms team, and I'll just ping you back with any initial doubts, so that we can then advance through the stages, which will eventually end with a PR being opened and the blog being reviewed by Dust team and others, and then eventually but then on the specifics of that, we will follow that path with you and do most of the heavy lifting. So just focus on the content, and I'll see some initial comments in the next week.
Okay. Next week I'm out on vacation starting, I think, Wednesday. So if you have like any question, feel free to ping Anna. I'll be around, ping me, but expect delay in my answer. So if you have any question regarding Fastly, you can ping Anna for this. She's in the Slack channel for this team.
Yep. That
I'll
works.
write this in the notes as next steps. So I know you're out on Wednesday. Always welcome to ask Hannah.
Yeah, any specific detail regarding how Fastly is operating or stuff like that, ping Anna. So I will not be at the next meeting next Friday.
We appreciate you coming in at all. We usually don't get someone coming in for these things.
No,
It's better than usual.
I promise I will come. I will come more.
I appreciate that. So the goal for the next week is to kind of get the basic content components figured out, right? Cool.
Yeah.
Content elements figured out. Awesome. Very good. Very good. Oh. These are at the wrong tab levels. Anyway, I think we're good to go there. So thank you all for joining. If you want to drop off, you're welcome. But if you want to join us for the rest of the meeting, you are also very welcome. Oh.
Okay, I need to drop for another meeting in 2 minutes. So see you all.
But thank you so much for joining.
Bye-bye.
You all, nice to meet you.
See ya. Oh, for our folks, I meant to mention for that, not important for them anyway. But for our folks, if you are excited about that discussion and want to be involved with it, keep an eye on the Slack channel, ContribEx.com. Sounds like we'll be doing some communications there. And of course, you can work with Federico as he starts getting the draft together. Federico, do you want folks to particularly volunteer at this point, or anything else you'd like to add for how folks can help you?
Yeah, well, so I'll personally take a stab at it in terms of reading, but anyone that wants to follow up with the process, it is welcome. So I'm not necessarily asking for people, but if someone wants to follow it along and eventually take even a more active role in it, I'm also fine.
I think that's perfect. This is going to be a pretty sensitive communication since it is end user impacting.
Yeah.
So it might be a good one to follow along and just kind of watch.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next item, Nitish, discussions about Spotlight blog on SIG release. Please tell us about it.
I joined the last week's SIG release meet and discussed about the plans of writing the Spotlight blog on SIG release. I explained them the process and a couple of questions that I was basically asked about what is a Spotlight blog, and another thing that was being asked about was how many times you need to update the SIG's Spotlight blog on SIG release. So I answered this question depending on what are the requirements, and they actually provided me with some the folks that I can reach out to. Now, and I think every one of them like this idea very interesting and is ready to go ahead with the writing a Spotlight blog on the SIG release. But as a certain, I generally have some questions on how to proceed further with writing a Spotlight blog on the SIG release, because on the SIG release Slack channel, I guess there was a discussion that there are a lot of things that are happening on release. So are there any chances if we can provide with dividing the blog into two parts? The first part is focusing on the first sub-project under the SIG release, whereas the second blog is focusing upon the second sub-project on the SIG release. This is my first concern. Other than that, I have started drafting a little bit of questions that need to be considered asking the co-chairs of the SIG release that are not definitely rotated. So these are the updates for up till now, but I generally have some question like, should we actually move with dividing the SIG release blog into two parts? And another thing, how many questions should be, like, what is the proper length of the blog that we should be targeting for the SIG release?
Okay, so you said the SIG chairs do not rotate per release, right? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Cool. Frederico, do you want to start or shall I?
Either work. Let me open them. You're at the board?
Not yet.
Yes.
No. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, we're in the notes still.
Yeah.
I can send you the link
on
again.
it. Okay. So
the questions currently are, is there a length requirement for SIG Spotlight blog posts? What other questions do you have that we should answer?
I'm trying to check those questions in the notes. Are you following something in there?
We are in this one.
Okay. Thank you.
And he was asking about maybe doing two separate blog posts on the two sub projects depending on length.
Yeah. So the goal would be a spotlight blog on SIG release, and the question is what would be the two topics that are there? Sub projects, which ones? I wasn't here last week, so
yes,
I don't know what they are either.
Basically the first project, I guess they mentioned about the release process, and the second one was basically about release engineering process. So do we actually need to address all these sub projects within one blog? Because I have seen some of the SIG Spotlight blogs that generally have explaining the process of the two sub-projects within the one blog. But since it is SIG release, do we actually need
Yeah,
to?
I understand your thing, because SIG release specifically takes two very different roles because of the way that Kubernetes release happened. They are like a normal SIG in some ways, with their weekly meetings, etc. But they also have their the Kubernetes release process going on. So they are actually also very directly involved in the way that the release team itself works. So with that in mind, I see absolutely no problem in splitting it up, as long as you consider as per your discussions with the people in SIG release, that you have enough contents and people participating to fill them up. Obviously, if you have two blog articles, one of which is like 3 lines, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't think that's the case, right? You will have one around the way that SIG release works, mostly outside of the release process itself, and then you can also have another one focusing on the role of SIG release during the Kubernetes release process. I think that's the idea. If so, I think it makes absolute sense. You can target two, and if at any time there's a drop or an inability to proceed with one, you can either just focus on one or integrate some of the information.
Cool. So is there any blog link that I should consider while writing the blog? And if specific questions, how many questions in one specific blog that I should be considering?
You can join at the right time, because that was just merged last week. Let me go there.
Oh. This will be a good
So I
opportunity.
finally
to
made
take a look at that.
I need to find the
link.
The link.
Yeah. Is this the new blogging updates to the blogging guidelines?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's I just add stuff that was floating around.
So Jay, did you find it? Update SIG Spotlight blog process merged last week?
Yeah.
Were you looking for the PR or the file?
No, I'm looking for the file. I don't particularly care about the, but I'll go through my PRs, and I suppose that I will find it.
Oh man, I thought that would take me to it.
Well, I'm there. I'm almost there. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so files changed. These are the one view file. Kubernetes community communications contributed. It's this one. So let me paste the link.
Navigating repositories.
Spotlight and
as a contributor, this is what you spend much of your time doing.
Okay. Link incoming. Oh, I'm not in. I'm on my mobile. I forgot because I'm on another meeting on the on the other side.
Yeah.
How will I make it?
It's just the blog guidelines, right? Storytelling resources, blog
it's
guidelines.
SIG Spotlight blog process. If you're in anyone that's in our Kubernetes community repository, it's like Kubernetes/community.
Yeah. Okay. So not.
It's then under communication contributor comms storytelling resources.
Gotcha.
And it's
we have
Spotlight, exactly.
Yeah. We have not just the blog guidelines, we now have also the SIG Spotlight blog process.
So exactly. There's a blogging guideline and a specific one for the SIG Spotlight.
Long answer to a short question, but
Yeah, sorry.
all good. So definitely refer to that for guidance. As far as length goes, I don't think that there's any specific requirement, unless you added one, Federico.
It's
About
just kind
put
of
a minimum length.
Oh,
I feel
hey,
like.
Chris. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about it, Federico?
I'm failing to understand the question. Sorry.
How long
So
should a blog post be?
yeah, what's like the
How long?
minimum
The
length?
limit.
Yeah. Like I think there should be like a bar you have to pass to be like a blog post, right? Like if you can answer it in 4 lines,
No, I think that you need to scroll for it to be a blog post.
there you go. So we could come up
Scroll
with a
on
minimum.
what device?
That's a good one.
Mm,
No, I mean, I guess it's a bit like that US description of porn, right? You know it when you see it. It's like a blog post. It's the same.
That's fair.
You, I mean,
True.
I don't
Very
want
true.
to say to people that this blog should be a tweet. So
I feel like a
those
couple of
meetings that could have
paragraphs.
been an email. But I don't think that, I think that if I understood the concern here is not so much that it can be too small, but perhaps that it can be too extensive and you need to split it up. I don't necessarily think that
There's a happy
you need
medium.
to split
Okay.
things up in series for it to make sense.
Mhm.
Because I mean, when you're reading, you can stop and resume at any time. But obviously, if you
Mhm.
have like a very long interview that we want to publish, we haven't had that yet. I can also see it being published in a series, like 1, 2, 3, whatever. Until then, I don't think I don't have a personal opinion on how long it should be. It should be long enough to not be like a couple of lines that could have been shared in some other way. So it needs to have some substance, links, description that makes it a bit more solid than a couple of lines. And I would only be concerned with being excessive if we're talking about like 3, 4, 5 pages of stuff there that can become very hard to read. So that would be my approach.
Cool.
What do you think?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think separating on these topics is great. It's more about like what makes sense. If you were
Yeah.
reading it, would you enjoy reading that amount of content?
And if they are
Be
done
it
at the
short
same
or
time,
long.
we
Yeah.
can, if they are done at the same time, we can actually play with it and see if we want to have it like this is part 1 and this is part 2, for example. If not, we can just publish one and then the other when it's ready. Obviously, the docs team will have their own say on this, right? Because this is for the website, so it's their review and their input there will also be decided.
Federico will help you navigate it. Also, I want to say that this doing a blog about how the release process works, it was actually a task that I put on our board back when we had the old board like 2 years ago, 2+ years ago,
Mhm.
that I always wanted to do. And I wanted to make illustrations for it to help explain the process. So I would love to work with you on that. I never did it, and I always felt bad about it. And now it's going to happen because of you. Thank you, Tish. I'm excited about that. All right. Do you feel like you're good to go?
Yes, just a final question. Is there any specific deadline that we're considering before the blog should be published? I just have a thinking of keeping in mind making the blog published before the next release could happen. So just in case, what do you all think of this?
I think that it's always good to have your own deadline in mind, even if it's not externally determined, because otherwise it will go forever. Wait, someone is calling me.
So that's your secret.
Yeah,
How Federico gets so much done.
If you have that's, for example, you just mentioned till the next release. You could do that, or you could say like, well, I think that realistically speaking, 2 months would be doable. So you just target that, and if it's doable, perfect. If you don't actually make it, it's not like there's nothing lost, right? Because that's a self-imposed deadline. It's not like in other blog articles in which we have an external, like the one we've mentioned before. There's a change, and we need to actually make it before that change happens. In this case, it doesn't really matter. I would just suggest not keeping it like a very 6 months for this. It's too much, because by then everyone has already forgotten. So as long as you keep a realistic deadline in mind, and if you can communicate it with those that you interview, sometimes that also works, because people tend to juggle around deadlines. And if you don't have a deadline for your part, it's like those projects that are at the sad end of a Kanban column. They never get done. So it's also important if you can arrange with the people that you interview a specific deadline, so that they can also work around it.
He is right about that.
And feel free to ping me directly or in the channel at any time, right? This is like an open community-based effort. So just put it out there, and I'll myself and others will do our best.
Learn in public.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Sounds like you've got a direction to go in and things to do.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. The next item I had in the notes, and we already are down to 13 minutes left. And also Avinash isn't here. But we were going to have a discussion about the events lead role and how we kind of don't really have events to manage right now because we got rid of the main one that we had to deal with. Chris and I were talking, and we were going to suggest to Avinash, which we'll have to ping him about later, that maybe he should become a sub-project lead shadow. We have a sub-project lead definition in the handbook now, so anyone is ever interested in that, you're welcome to talk with us about it. I think maybe becoming a lead and then becoming sub-project lead maybe makes sense as a path. Totally figuring this stuff out as we go.
Makes sense to me. I don't know.
I think that's a strong possibility. So we'll ping Avinash about that. As always, if you ever have any questions about roles and shadows and stuff like that, reach out to the group, reach out to the specific role leads, lead roles, people that you want to learn more about, and just ask questions. All right. And with that, I think we'll move into the board.
To the board. Yar.
Yar. I think that's the plank. Anyway. In progress things. Do you want to give a quick overview of SIG Spotlights in progress, Federico? Oh, and by the way, Chris, you missed it at the beginning of the meeting. Arnaud and Hannah were here to ask us to help out with some communications about dl.kh.io, which is a registry-esque change that's happening.
Oh, awesome. Great.
They were actually here, though. They were
Good.
here to
I'm
tell
glad
us
they were
about it.
here.
And they said they'd be back.
When?
They said as soon as the blog post goes out, they want to ship it 30 days-ish after that. So they're
Okay.
kind of flexible. Yeah. And they'll
Can
be
make
working
that
with us
work.
on it. I think it's going to be good. It's another one of those we're changing the back end so that we're not using Google
Right.
money.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
So
There's notes.
yeah, just on that point, I will say that, how do I phrase this without breaking some rules? A lot of enterprise Kubernetes users did not get the memo. That was feedback I got at KubeCon.
We are pretty bad at that, so makes
So
sense.
I know what we did at my company, but did any of the other like big Kate's vendors send out a message to their customers? I
I'm
know
pretty
that's
sure that
hard.
Google sent something out.
Yeah, like we
But-
sent it to all customers because of the EC2-ness of it all. And we can't necessarily identify a Kubernetes cluster from, like a VMware host.
Yeah. That is a good point.
So
I'll talk
yeah,
with
we got to
Bob about
figure
that.
out how to get to that audience.
We don't have great
figure-
inroads to get to them.
Yeah,
right now
like
is
I
the
gotta
issue.
find
Yeah.
some connection I have to reach like CTOs and CIOs. Like that we can plug
Is there a
into.
mailing list?
Even then, well, I mean, funny, haha.
CEOs would not.
I mean, but I'm sure, there are places they hang out, right? Right? Like
Country
they read.
clubs.
Yeah, but they read stuff from somewhere. And yeah, it's
Probably
It's a
lots of
gap.
different places.
yeah, it's a gap, and we kind of need to figure out the best way to address it.
We used to have a user research group within the open source Kubernetes project. If that is a thing that exists, maybe we should make use of that and try to figure out ways we could reach them.
That's a good point. That's still a thing.
I should add that as a note. All right, I'm done typing. Thank you for that point. Now we have 8 minutes left to go through the entire board.
Sorry.
Chris, this is all your fault.
I'm sorry.
Very much not your fault. It's very much my fault. Why are meetings so long when I run them? Anyway, I'm gonna skip the SIG Spotlight stuff for the moment. We can come back to it at the end if we have time. We have talked about SIG Spotlights a lot. We can also update on those asynchronously. Also, Zapier automation. Imran hasn't been able to be on for a while. Maybe we should ping our tech lead folks, see what's going on there.
So on that front, like the ball is moving, right? Like I told Bob and Nigel this morning, like, hey, just connect these accounts and I'll migrate everything over. I suspect if Bob does it, he'll be like, okay, it's done, and then I'll migrate it. If Nigel ends up doing it, I imagine he'll do it. But like we're now at the point where we can do this. So yeah, we should figure out who's the best person for that.
That also reminds me that I got access to create the ticket for making sure we have enough money to add Mastodon to the buffer account, and I didn't do it yet. So
No, that's
just put
fine.
that on my to-do list.
It's one of those things where it's like it's good once it's done, but not really
Yeah.
urgent. I don't
We'll
think.
need it for the next KubeCon.
Right in November.
It's not too bad. But yes, it's good to know that Zapier bits are in motion.
Mhm.
We still need to update the contributor comms GitHub team. She'll be on here forever. Add your notes about admitting to the documentation. Also on here forever. Spotlight. Storytelling resources. We need to still update the name of that section of our repo to blogging resources instead of storytelling resources, because we don't use that terminology anymore.
Right.
Zapier account management setup and setup completion. That's you. You added that last week. Yay. Sounds like that's still in the right spot.
Yep.
For to-do items, Spotlight, new contributor workshop, still waiting. Also there forever. Comms guidelines for sensitive security topics. Or I think I should change this to also sensitive end user impacting topics. Though maybe those are separate things. But it'd be good if we could record some of the things that we do for this dl.k8s.io change as guidelines for sensitive end user impacting stuff.
Makes sense.
All right, and that's going to be in progress because we're going to work on stuff. No, not ready for review. In progress. Cool. Retrospective. If you want to do that, you gotta make it happen, I guess. Notify comms team when a new issue is created. Maybe someday we'll figure that out. And Slackbot is still broken. All right. Haha, we've got 4 minutes left to discuss things.
Nice. I don't know. My brain is kind of fried because I had to do a fasting physical until just now, basically.
Those are awful.
Yeah, my body was just slowly starting to deteriorate throughout the day. It's like, you need food. But yeah, so I don't have anything jumping out at me, I don't think. No.
Right. Federico, any other updates about any of the other spotlights that are in progress?
Yeah, so I've sent an updated description of some of the topics that we can discuss for the architecture one. Much like the one on release, it will be based on different topics for the sub projects. Still no feedback, but I've made it recently anyway. I wasn't here last week, but I'm not sure if I had already mentioned this, I guess we talked that during in KubeCon, at least with you, right? Because I didn't met Kaislyn in person and live. I went trying to find you, Chris, but I wasn't. I didn't make it.
Very hard to find.
Yeah.
I was either in the AWS booth or literally everywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. I went to the AWS booth, but so what we ended up gaining from that is that I've talked with the Cap Reading Club lead and they've stopped doing it. So obviously that one is out. And I've also talked with Noah about it would be interesting to make something about how this KubeCon Contributor Summit are organized. So that could be something interesting to follow up. And I'm going to send him a message again and see if we can set that up. I know that we also have like a SIG ContribEx blog spotlight article being worked on. This could be in parallel with that one because it's a specific thing, although it's made by SIG ContribEx, so I don't think it overlaps with it. It would actually be interesting. It's much like what we just discussed about SIG release, right? There's a normal day-to-day job, and then there's one specific thing that requires specific attention. I would say that the KubeCon organization is one that requires a specific spotlight. So I'll talk with Noah and others and make an update next week.
And with FICA on that one, since you are leading the SIG ContribEx blog. Perfect. We have just a minute left. Nitish and FICA, you're both working on SIG spotlights. Do you want to give a quick update on your status? You don't have to.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yes, I contacted a SIG node regarding this, and I've started drafting the questions. I'll probably be reaching out to them now. So it's better because I have some reference from the previous blogs, as this is not the case in SIG release. So yeah.
Perfect. So you have reached out to the SIG. That's your status. Micah, any updates?
Is that there's no previous blog on SIG ContribEx, so this is going to be the first time someone's going to write a blog on this. So I need to research a little bit. That's the reason that I'm reading the repository and all the documents out there. I also reached out to Federico about the same. So he also guided me over the same, like I should read the meeting agenda and first understand everything and what all is going on in SIG ContribEx, and then I'll frame the questions around it, since I don't have exactly the idea of the questions that needs to be framed there. So yeah, that's my update. I'm still starting, and I framed some questions, but I'll come with the questions once I'm done with all of them.
Also, I just realized you're probably going to be interviewing me.
Yeah. Probably
Yeah,
the
that's
reason
how
I
that works.
did this.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think we'll bring Bob or Bob or Josh, the emeritus leads, into that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was
So-
about to ask. I saw some of the SIG spotlight messages on the Slack channel who were interested in writing one. So what they suggested was that it's not necessary that the tech leads or the co-chairs have to write the blog. It could be anyone who has an idea of SIG ContribEx. Is it so?
This is true. Yep.
Oh,
Usually ends up being the chairs, though. Or tech
Yeah.
leads. Yeah.
In theory, the difference between theory and practice is that in theory there's no difference. There is. So it,
Yeah.
you will end up with that's true, but in the end, if you're asking questions about things that what are the next step forward, what is the direction of the group, etc., this will most likely end up with being people that are shares or at least are sub leads of some projects.
Because you need
And-
kind of a
but-
broad overview of the SIG
Yeah,
to be able
exactly.
to do it. And if you have that level of overview, you're probably a chair or about to be one.
Yeah, so there can be more than one person who we could interview for the same.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
like
Totally.
It's
The
usually
more
a couple.
Yeah, the more the merrier, usually.
Yeah.
Federico, there is clearly a limit, but yeah, check me on that if
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
No, this is the kind of thing that if you make it work, honestly, I think that most people have had interviews with one or two. That's the most common. But I don't see any problem if you have more people.
Yeah.
It could be more complex to make it to edit it, but it can also be more fulfilling. So just go ahead, have fun, and we will all learn in the process.
Yeah. And don't worry about knowing everything about the SIG before you get started. You're going to learn a whole lot about it from the chairs. This is your opportunity to learn about it by asking folks or not the chairs. Maybe it'll be the TLs or something.
So like probably the two things that I got to know about beginning to write a SIG spotlight blog is first of all the repository and secondly the meeting agenda. So these are the two resources that I am referring to. Perhaps anyone who's looking forward to write one could note this down.
And also the annual report for each group might be a good resource
Oh,
because we just PR'd in our annual report for SIG ContribEx. So you can see information about stuff we did for the last release, which isn't really anything because we're SIG ContribEx. And our sub projects and some of the like major updates are in the annual report as well.
where can I find this annual report thing?
I'll find the link and send it to you. It's not too hard to find. It's just like in the SIG ContribEx repo, and it's like annual report 2023. But I'll send you the link.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. We are 4 minutes over.
Whoa.
Sorry about that.
I need
You
to
have to
drop.
go. Yeah. So I'm gonna
Have a
go
great
ahead and wrap
one.
this up. Thank you all so much for joining today.
Cheers. Bye bye.
You know where to find us.